Good evening and welcome to the last class for a while of Maitreya's Ornament for Clear Realization with Venerable Sangye Khadro. We'll start with prayers. First, a short mandala offering. This ground anointed with perfumes, strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, 4 continents, the sun and the moon. I imagine this as a Buddha field and offer it. May all living beings enjoy this pure land. Idam Guru Ratna Mandala Kamniryataya Me. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. May all sentient beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all sentient beings be inseparable from the happiness that is free from suffering. May all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free from attachment for friends and hatred for enemies. Tayata Om Muni Muni Maha Munie Soha. Tayata Om Muni Muni Maha Munie Soha. Tayata Om Muni Muni Maha Munie Soha. And again, thank you everyone for being here. Over to you, Venerable Sangye Khadro.
Thank you, and good evening to all of you. So as usual, we'll do some meditation on some material from last week's course, last week's class. Okay, so make yourselves comfortable, get into a comfortable position for meditation, but it's good if you're not too comfortable in the sense that you're falling asleep. So we do want to stay awake and alert when we meditate, but it's good for our body to be as relaxed as possible. If you notice any tension anywhere in the body, imagine that it melts, flows away, sinks into the earth, or evaporates in space, leaving your body as light, relaxed, as free of tension as possible. Let your breathing be natural, flowing in and out in a natural rhythm without you trying to control it, manipulate it. And let your mind rest on the breathing for a few minutes, being aware of each breath coming in and going out. And in this way, let your mind settle down in the present moment right now, and the present place, wherever you are right now. So put aside any other thoughts there may be in your mind, past, future, other places. Just let your mind be right in the present, being aware of the breath coming in and going out. And then bring into your mind, into your heart, as much feeling of love and compassion that you're able to feel. Feel the wish that this meditation that we're doing and this class that we're doing tonight will be beneficial for ourselves and for others and for the world, and will help all of us get closer to awakening. So for the meditation, let's take a look at the eightfold path. These are the last 8 of the 37 harmonies. And they're things the Buddha taught in his very first teaching. They're like 8 steps on the path to liberation from suffering and the causes of suffering. One way of understanding the eightfold path is in terms of 3 groups, which are called the 3 trainings or 3 higher trainings. These are kind of the main practices we need to do to free ourselves from suffering and its causes. And the first of those 3 is ethics, or ethical conduct, or morality, which has to do with our behavior. So there are 3 of the 8 steps of the Eightfold Path that are included in ethics. First is right speech. And what that means is really trying our best to speak in ways that are positive and constructive, and avoid ways of speaking that are harmful and destructive, like harsh speech, telling lies, divisive speech, and idle talk, talking about things that aren't very meaningful. And just contemplate that and see if that's something you would like to practice in your life. And then second is right action. That has to do with actions of our body, trying to act in ways, again, that are beneficial, helpful, and avoid harmful, destructive actions like killing, stealing, and unwise, unskillful sexual behavior. So again, let's see how that fits into your life, if that's something you would like to include in your life and practice. And third is right livelihood, which has to do with how you make your living. Buddha advised that we avoid occupations that are harmful, like dealing in weapons or poisons, raising animals for slaughter, killing animals for meat, and so forth. So we should try to avoid those and earn our livelihood in ways that are honest and beneficial as much as possible. And then the second of the 3 higher trainings is in concentration, higher training of concentration. And 3 of the steps of the Eightfold Path are included here. One is right effort. So right effort means making effort to avoid things that are non-virtuous, that are not so much actions, but mental states, like states of mind that are problematic, that cause suffering, trying to work on overcoming those, and work on increasing states of mind that are positive and constructive, like love and compassion and wisdom and so on. So putting our effort into positive, constructive changes in our mind, our attitudes. And then there's right mindfulness, which means cultivating this mind that it pays attention to what we're doing and keeps in mind the things we're supposed to practice, and also practicing the 4 establishments of mindfulness, like mindfulness of the body, feelings, and so forth. So making the effort to cultivate those 4 practices of mindfulness. And then there's right concentration, which is to train our mind to stay concentrated on our object of meditation and cultivate calm abiding, shamatha. Even if we just spend a little bit of time each day training our mind to stay concentrated, that's already a good start. And then the third of the 3 higher trainings is in wisdom. Wisdom basically means understanding things as they are. And this is the most important practice because our problems are all rooted in ignorance about the way things are, seeing things incorrectly. So wisdom is the antidote to that, the cure for our ignorance. So there's 2 of the steps of the Eightfold Path included in right wisdom. One is right view or right understanding. And this refers to understanding the 4 truths, the 4 noble truths, and basically what is to be practiced and what is to be abandoned, what is virtue, what is non-virtue, what is positive, what is negative. So gradually developing our understanding of those things, because that underlies our practice of the path. And then finally, there's right thought or right intention. And the Dalai Lama said what's included here is renunciation of suffering and the causes of suffering, wanting to be free of those, and learning to have a balanced state of mind that's free of attachment and other afflictions, having love and compassion, and cultivating bodhicitta. So cultivating positive intentions, motivations for the things that we are doing. So there's a lot of things to practice here, and you may feel unable to practice all of them, but think about at least 1 or 2 of these 8 steps that you feel that you can start working on, putting into practice in your life, and see if you can make the determination to do that to the best of your ability. So, yeah, last week we went through the Eightfold Path, and Jessica asked a question about the order of these, because there's a difference in the order of the 8 steps, the way that they are usually presented, starting with right view, and that's actually the way they were explained by the Buddha. And then on the other hand, when we divide the 8 into those 3 groups, the ethics, concentration, and wisdom, then they're in a different order. And so I said I would investigate this, and I did find something. If you could put the slides up, Effie. I found this little book called The Noble Eightfold Path by Bhikkhu Bodhi. Bhikkhu Bodhi is an American monk. He lives in New York, somewhere in New York. And he's been a monk a really long time, more than 50 years, I think, and mainly in the Theravada tradition. I think he studied in Sri Lanka, and he's done a lot of translations of the Pali Sutras. So he's very, very knowledgeable about the Pali Sutras. So in this little book, he says this. He says, the 8 factors of the Noble Eightfold Path are not steps to be followed in sequence, one after another. They can be more aptly described as components rather than as steps, comparable to the intertwining strands of a single cable that requires the contributions of all the strands for maximum strength. So a practitioner actually needs to develop all 8 of these and have all of these present in their mind and their practice. So he says, with a certain degree of progress, all 8 factors can be present simultaneously, each supporting the others. So that's at a higher level of development. When you've really trained in all of them, you can have all of them together. And I like that analogy that they're like a cable. You know, in a cable, you often have many different strands of rope or wire or whatever. And, you know, having so many together makes it really strong. And then he says, however, until that point is reached, some sequence in the unfolding of the path is inevitable. So until you're at that point where you can have all of them simultaneously, there will be, you know, a sequence. And then he goes on to talk about how the 8 factors are divided into 3 groups, like, you know, like I did last week and we just meditated on. And those are according to these 3 trainings. And they're like 3 stages of training. And he says we first need to discipline ourselves, our actions of body and speech. So that's the training in ethics, before we can unify our mind and concentration. So we have to tame our body and speech before we'll be able to have success in meditation and concentration. So concentration is the second training. And then with concentration, we can attain wisdom, which is the 3rd training. So that order is in terms of practical training. Yeah, how we actually go about training ourselves in these 8. And then in this book, he addresses this question that Jessica asked. He said, perplexity sometimes arises over an apparent inconsistency in the arrangement of the path factors and the 3-fold training. Yeah, so as you noticed, right view is given first, right view and right attention, those are given first, but then when you divide the 8 into those 3 groups, they come last. So you're not the first person who was perplexed about that. And he explains that this is because a preliminary type of right view and right intention are needed at the beginning as the spur for entering the 3-fold training. Right view provides the perspective for practice, and right intention provides the sense of direction. So we need a certain amount of right view and right intention to even start practicing. You know, like if we didn't understand why we're practicing, we wouldn't have any incentive to practice. So right view helps us understand why we need to practice. And then he says later, when the mind has been refined by the training in ethics and concentration, it arrives at a superior right view and right intention, which now form the proper training in the higher wisdom. So yeah, we need a certain amount of right view and right intention to get us started in our practice. And then we start practicing, going through the steps of the threefold training. And then later when we arrive, when we're able to have wisdom, you know, really good, strong wisdom, then that's like the full attainment of right view and right intention. So I think that makes sense because, you know, in Buddha's very first teaching, he first talked about the Four Noble Truths. He explained the Four Noble Truths, and then, you know, with the fourth truth is the truth of the path. So with regard to that, then he explained the Eightfold Path. This is the path, these 8 things. And so the people who are listening, they first heard about true suffering and true origins, and so they must have felt, yes, I want to be free of suffering and the origins of suffering. And so then they were ready to hear about the way to do that, the path. Let me just read a little more what he says in this book. It's quite nice. He says, right view is the forerunner of the entire path, the guide for all the other factors. It enables us to understand our starting point, our destination, and the successive landmarks to pass as practice advances. To attempt to engage in the practice without a foundation of right view is to risk getting lost in the futility of undirected movement. Doing so might be compared to wanting to drive someplace without consulting a road map or listening to the suggestion of an experienced driver. One might get into the car and start to drive, but rather than approaching closer to one's destination, one is more likely to move further away from it. To arrive at the desired place, one has to have some idea of its general direction and of the roads leading to it. Analogous considerations apply to the practice of the path, which takes place in a framework of understanding established by right view. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. Does that help? Yeah. And also, yeah, so there's different levels of right view that oppose wrong views. There's actually a lot of wrong views that people can have, like thinking that our actions don't bring results and therefore we can do whatever we want, nothing will happen to us. So some people think that way. That's a wrong view. And so having the right view of cause and effect, or karma, counteracts that wrong view. And in the book Following the Buddha's Footsteps, it says there's many other wrong views, and there's also new wrong views coming into existence all the time. For example, nowadays, some people have the view that mental afflictions such as anger and selfishness are fixed traits, that our brain is hardwired to have these traits, and there's nothing we can do about them, no way that we can change them. So I think there are people who think that way. Yeah, we're born with this brain, and we are kind of hardwired or programmed to get angry and to be selfish, and that's how we are. And we can't do anything about that. We can't change that. So neuroplasticity has shown that that is not true, not correct, but still some people believe it. And so, you know, if you think, oh, there's no way I can change, this is how I am, I can't change, then they won't even try. You know, they won't even put effort into trying to change themselves. So that's quite an unfortunate wrong view to have. So anyway, wrong views. There's lots of wrong views that can affect our life, our, things that we do, and so on. and lead to more suffering, more problems for ourselves and others. So it's really important that we have right view about how things do exist. Okay, so in the next slide, this drawing of a wheel, it's called the Wheel of Dharma with 8 spokes. It's used quite a lot, at least in the Theravada tradition. And so I think having the 8 factors of the Eightfold Path illustrated by a wheel could also help us get a sense that they're not necessarily steps that we have to follow in a sequence, because with a wheel, you can't really say where's the starting point, right? You have these 8 things, but which one is number 1? Okay, so this arrangement could also help us get more of a sense that, yeah, we do need to have all of them. All of them are important factors, but which one we do at the beginning could vary. For some people, maybe right livelihood is their starting point. They may hear about, yeah, certain activities, certain types of livelihood are really harmful, bring harm to others, bring harm to yourself. And so they really work on trying to rectify that and find, a more compassionate and ethical livelihood. Yeah, so different people, depending on their situation, their way of thinking, their inclinations might start at different points. Okay, so last week we looked at these 8 factors and how they can be included in the 3 higher trainings. And that particular way of explaining them mainly comes from the Theravada tradition, the Pali tradition. But now let's look at some information about these 8 according to the Mahayana tradition, how they're practiced by bodhisattvas. And in this tradition, in the commentaries to the Ornament for Clear Realization, which is what we're studying, it's said that these 8 factors are high realizations. They are found in the minds of Arya beings. Aryas, again, are those who've attained the direct realization of emptiness, and they're on the higher path, the path of meditation, getting closer to enlightenment. So they're kind of way up there. But of course, before becoming an Arya and attaining the path of meditation, they had to start practicing these 8 things early on, the beginning of their practice. And we do as well. We need to start practicing these from the beginning of our practice. Okay, so for bodhisattvas, these 8 factors are divided into 4 groups, which are called 4 branches. And there's a verse in one of Maitreya's texts, this text called Differentiation of the Middle and Extremes. And this mentions these 8 factors and the 4, and how they're divided into 4 branches. So the words in red are from this text by Maitreya, and then the words in black show which of the 8 factors are being referred to. So the first line of this verse says, one that thoroughly realizes. That refers to right view. And right view, again, these 8 factors are included in 4 branches. So right view is known as the branch of affirmation because it affirms the realization of the Four Noble Truths or emptiness that occurred during meditative equipoise. So when an Arya, that is a person who has the direct realization of emptiness, so when they are in a deep state of meditation on emptiness, which this is called meditative equipoise, at that time, the only thing appearing to their mind is emptiness, the emptiness of inherent existence of all things, and no conventional things appear to their mind. And they don't have any thoughts, they don't have any conceptual thoughts. So while they're in this very deep state of meditation, directly realizing emptiness, they don't have a thought that says, I am meditating on emptiness, or I am having a realization of emptiness. That doesn't occur then. It's only later when they come out of meditation, that very deep state of meditation, they come back to a more ordinary state of mind, but then they would have that thought, oh, that was a realization of emptiness. Yeah, that's a conceptual thought. So that can only occur outside of meditative equipoise, but not during meditative equipoise. So that's what's meant here by right view. It's a conceptual thought that I realized emptiness, and in that way it affirms, it sort of validates that realization that took place during meditative equipoise. And then the second line says one that makes you understand, and that refers to right intention. And so for bodhisattvas, right intention is the intention to explain to others the realization of emptiness that they attained in meditation. Of course, they want to explain lots of other things, but emptiness is really, really important, because that is the key to becoming free of suffering and the causes of suffering. It's only by the realization of emptiness that sentient beings can free themselves from their suffering and its causes. And so bodhisattvas know that, and they want to help sentient beings understand emptiness and gain that realization of emptiness. So that's the meaning of right intention here. And this is among the four branches. This is called the branch of promoting understanding in others, helping others to understand. The next line of the verse says, the three factors make others develop trust. So this refers to three of the Eightfold Path: right speech, right action, and right livelihood. So right speech for bodhisattvas would be speaking correctly, truthfully, but also speech that explains emptiness to other sentient beings, helping them understand emptiness. And then right action refers to refraining from harmful actions like killing, stealing, and so forth. And then right livelihood refers to, well, in the case for monastics, as we saw before, monastics, monks and nuns don't usually go out and get jobs and make salary, but we rely on other people to donate to us what we need, food and clothes and so on. So we need to avoid the 5 types of wrong livelihood in procuring what we need: hinting, flattery, bribery, coercion, and hypocrisy. So we looked at those last time. So bodhisattvas need to practice those as well. So those 3 factors are known as the branch that develops trust and respect in others' minds, because if we've practiced those, by practicing those, others will trust oneself. Okay, you inspire trust in others, and then they're more likely to listen to you when you try to teach them. And then the next line says, as antidotes to those on the opposite side, and this refers to the final three factors of right effort, mindfulness, and concentration. And so for bodhisattvas, right effort is making the effort to overcome what is to be abandoned, like, afflictions that prevent enlightenment. So the things in the mind that stop us from attaining enlightenment. So we have to overcome those. So making effort to overcome those. And then right mindfulness is not forgetting the object of meditation, being able to remember and stay on the object of meditation and overcome obstacles to concentration. And then right concentration is the way to overcome obstacles to concentration. The mind being unwieldy, unserviceable, not letting us stay concentrated. And so these three are called the branch of antidotes to this discordant class because they overcome and purify obstructions to following the path. And so these are the 8 factors of the path. So there's a lot more that could be said about the Eightfold Path, especially in the Theravada tradition. There's lots of books and so on if you want to learn more about that. And the Dalai Lama, as I mentioned last week, the Dalai Lama said he really appreciates the approach in the Theravada tradition because it explains how we can start practicing the Eightfold Path here and now while we are still ordinary beings. We don't have to wait until we're Arya beings to practice them. And so he says in starting to practice these, they will guide our lives until we actually enter the path. Okay. So we need to understand that even though the Eightfold Path is talked about a lot in the Theravada tradition, it is also something that needs to be practiced by bodhisattvas on the path to enlightenment. So we shouldn't ignore it and think, this isn't for us. We do need to practice these. And so one more slide related to the 37 harmonies. So we've gone through all the 37 harmonies. And there's a lot more that we could have looked at, but we were short of time. And so at least we know more about them than we did before. And in the final chapter of the book, Following in the Buddha's Footsteps, in that book, there is a lot of information about the 37 harmonies if you want to read more. And in the last chapter, it contains some material on how the 37 harmonies connect with each other and how they help us progress along the path. And there's also an explanation of the conventional and ultimate aspects of the 37 harmonies. And this is particularly for bodhisattvas, those wanting to follow the path to enlightenment. And it's explained in the Perfection of Wisdom Sutras and in the Ornament. So it says that a bodhisattva needs to meditate on how these 37 harmonies exist conventionally. They do exist conventionally, but they don't exist ultimately. So the first bullet point here mentions that the 37 harmonies with awakening must be understood and meditated on in terms of their conventional and ultimate nature. So this is stressed again and again, that bodhisattvas need to keep those two things in mind, the two truths. They need to understand how things exist conventionally, but at the same time, they don't exist ultimately, because the meaning of ultimately, existing ultimately, means it's the same as existing inherently or independently, objectively. So, so the conventional nature of the 37 harmonies is as explained above, meaning what we went through during this course, how we practice these 37 harmonies, like mindfulness of the body as unclean, feelings as unsatisfactory, and so on. So all of that we went through with the 37 harmonies, that's the conventional nature of the 37 harmonies. And then meditating on their ultimate nature is seeing that they lack inherent existence, that they don't exist inherently. So the Dalai Lama says, with wisdom analyzing the ultimate nature, we investigate their deeper mode of being. Although they appear to have an inherent nature, when searched for, a fixed, independent nature cannot be found. They appear one way, but exist in another way. Reflecting on the emptiness of inherent existence of the meditations, realizations, and qualities we develop is extremely powerful, because it prevents us from reifying the very paths that liberate us. In addition to meditating that the 37 harmonies are empty of inherent existence, we reflect that likewise the I, the person cultivating them, and the awakening to which they lead lack inherent existence. So, for example, with the first of the 37 harmonies, the mindfulness of the body. So when a bodhisattva is practicing mindfulness of the body, they have to do that practice, but at the same time, they also have to understand that that practice of mindfulness of the body doesn't exist inherently, independently, objectively from its own side. So they have to keep that in mind. They also have to understand the I who's practicing, who's doing the practice of mindfulness of the body, doesn't exist inherently, but is empty of inherent existence. And then the goal that they're trying to reach, the state of enlightenment, Buddhahood, is also empty of inherent existence. So they have to remember that all facets, all aspects of their practice are empty of inherent existence. So of course, they have to make effort to learn about emptiness, meditate on emptiness, and get a realization of emptiness. And then they they bring that understanding of emptiness into their practice. And so that's how a bodhisattva would understand these two natures, the conventional nature and the ultimate nature of these 37 harmonies. And then towards the end of the book, following the Buddha's footsteps, Venerable Chödrön says that she asked the Dalai Lama why it is that these 37 harmonies are not mentioned in the Lam Rim. Yeah, so if it really is true that they have to be practiced for the attainment of enlightenment, how come they're not mentioned in the Lam Rim? And the Dalai Lama said that students, like in the monasteries, the monks and nuns and other students who are studying the ornament for clear realization and also studying Madhyamaka Avatara. So during those studies, they learn about the 37 harmonies. And then also Lama Tsongkhapa, when he wrote his Lamrim text, they seem to be written for people like that, people who have studied the ornament, and so they would know. And the Dalai Lama says Tsongkhapa's direct disciples were great scholars and geshis, so it seems that he took it for granted that they already knew how to practice the 37 harmonies. So, and then the Dalai Lama went on to say that a qualified tantric practitioner also needs to know the 37 harmonies, because he gave the example of Yamantaka, one of the deities, a very common, popular deity in our tradition. And it's a deity with many faces and many arms. He has 34 arms. So Yamantaka's 34 arms plus his body, speech, and mind represent the 37 harmonies. And the 4 doors of Yamantaka's mandala represent the purification of the 4 establishments of mindfulness, the purification of the 4 supreme strivings, and so on and so forth. So therefore, a tantric practitioner must have complete understanding of the 37 harmonies in order to have a proper basis to visualize these aspects of the deity and the mandala. Yeah, I remember Wangmo, she doesn't seem to be here tonight, but she asked a question about that a few weeks ago, that somebody who's practicing Tantra, do they need to do these practices as well? So the Dalai Lama says yes. And again, he reiterated how important it is to incorporate not just the 37 harmonies, but all 173 aspects, which I'll remind you of in a little while. He says, although these are qualities of the 3 awakened states, those of Shravakas and solitary realizer arhats and Buddhas, and are beyond our comprehension, we can still imagine these qualities and train to develop them. They must be applied and practiced in our daily lives. This is very important. So anyway, in short, the Dalai Lama does say that if we're following the Mahayana path, it is important that we learn and practice the 37 harmonies to whatever level you're able to. You know, most people are very busy, may not have time, but if you really are serious about becoming enlightened, then these are practices that we need to do. So let's look at the next slide, because there's another place where the 37 harmonies are mentioned, and that is in this text. It's another of the texts that are studied in the monasteries, and we also study it in the master program. It's called Entering the Middle Way by Chandrakirti, and it's a really wonderful text if you ever have the chance to study it. It actually goes through all the path to enlightenment. It has a lot of information about all the practices on the path to enlightenment, but it's mainly studied because the most of the text, the bulk of the text, is about the perfection of wisdom. So he really goes into a lot of detail on how to develop the wisdom, understanding emptiness. So anyway, in that text, in the 4th chapter, there's this verse that says, there for the Sugata child, an illumination arises, produced from a greater cultivation of the harmonies of perfect enlightenment, surpassing the copper light. So chapter 4 of this text is explaining the 4th ground. So out of, on the Bodhisattva's path, part of the Bodhisattva's path are called the 10 grounds, or bhumis, the Bodhisattva passes through. I'm going to talk a little bit about those later. But anyway, the fourth ground is what's being talked about here. And the term Sugata, child, is another term for bodhisattva. And it mentions the copper light in the last line. So it said that on the third ground, just as a copper-like splendor appears shortly before sunrise, or you could also say when the sun is setting, so on this ground, an illumination of wisdom appears to a bodhisattva who has generated the third ground. This indicates that on the third ground, an appearance of all-pervasive red or orange light appears subsequent to meditative equipoise. And then the third ground is called luminous because of this appearance of this copper-colored light. So then on the fourth ground, this is the next stage, on this ground, the bodhisattva engages very intensely in the cultivation of the 37 harmonies with enlightenment. And this produces an illumination of wisdom that surpasses this copper light of the third ground. And because of the arisal of this very intense light of the fire of exalted wisdom, this bodhisattva ground is called radiant. Okay, so anyway, on both the third ground and the fourth ground, because of the incredible wisdom that the bodhisattva has, they experience this light. But the light on the third ground and the light on the fourth ground aren't quite the same. The light on the fourth ground is brighter because of the increase of their wisdom. Sorry, I just realized my finger is bleeding. I don't know what happened. Yeah, so anyway, there is this mention of the 37 harmonies in the context of the fourth ground, chapter 4 of Chandrakirtis, because this at that time the bodhisattva is really making effort to practice these 37 harmonies and is able to attain quite a strong degree of wisdom with regard to these 37 harmonies. So, so we'll stop here for a break, and I've kind of finished what I wanted to cover for this course, but I thought that since we have some extra time and this is our final class, I thought it might be nice to do a bit of review, some of the main points we covered in this course. So I'll start that after our 5-minute break. So let's take a break now. Okay, so let's do a little bit of review. It's been 12 weeks since we started, just to remember what we've been doing all this time. So the main topic of this course was chapter 4 of the Ornament for Clear Realizations. This is a text by Maitreya that explains the details of the Bodhisattva's path to enlightenment. What a Bodhisattva needs to practice, the realizations they need to attain, and so on, to transform their mind into enlightened mind. And so this text has 8 chapters altogether. And chapter 4 is called Application in Complete Aspects. And the term application refers to a practice that bodhisattvas need to do. And so application in complete aspects is mentioned here what it is. It's a bodhisattva's yoga conjoined with the wisdom that collectively cultivates the aspects of the three exalted knowers. So the three exalted knowers are these are the main realizations that a bodhisattva needs to develop. Exalted knower of all aspects, that's omniscient mind, and then knower of paths and knower of bases. Those are called the three exalted knowers, and they're explained in the first 3 chapters of this text, Ornament for Clear Realizations. So after explaining those 3 exalted knowers, then chapter 4 explains this application on complete aspects. And this is a practice that the bodhisattva does to attain those 3 exalted knowers. And they do it by collectively cultivating the 173 aspects. So an aspect, this term aspect, is an attribute or feature or quality. For example, impermanence. Okay, we've all heard about impermanence and meditated on impermanence. So that's one example of an aspect. And these 173 aspects are things that a bodhisattva needs to first learn about, hear about, study, think about, meditate on, and work on in their mind, train their mind to understand these 173 aspects. And they need to do it in a collective way. So they first learn about the 173 aspects individually and train in them. But gradually, they want to be able to, bring them all together in their mind and even get to the point where they can have all 173 aspects present in their mind at the same time. That's quite a high achievement, but it's something that they do. And so the 173 aspects are divided in these different ways. 27 aspects of knower of bases. So knower of bases, that's one of the 3 exalted knowers. And 36 aspects of knower of paths, that's the second of the 3 exalted knowers. And then 110 aspects of an exalted knower of all aspects. And that in turn has different groups, 37 aspects similar to those of hearers. So this is the 37 harmonies with enlightenment that we focused on in this course, because that is what Lama Zopa Rinpoche wanted students to learn. That's why he wanted them to study chapter 4, so that they would learn these 37 harmonies with enlightenment. And so here they are included under the 110 aspects of exalted knower of all aspects. And that term exalted knower of all aspects is another term for enlightened mind, omniscient mind, Buddha's mind. And so these 110 aspects are found in the Buddha's mind. Okay, there are all qualities of a Buddha's mind. But there are also similar aspects in the minds of other beings, like hearers. Hearers are those who are striving to attain liberation. Okay, so these 37 aspects, we've just gone through the 37 harmonies. Those are found in the minds of hearers, as well as bodhisattvas, as well as Buddhas. So they're common to all types of practitioners on the Buddhist path. So that's where these 37 aspects fit in the overall framework of the of chapter 4 and of this text, Ornament for Clear Realization. And then there's also 34 aspects similar to those of bodhisattvas, and 39 aspects that are uncommon. What that means, 39 aspects that are uncommon, that means those are only found in the minds of Buddhas. Only a Buddha has those. Bodhisattvas don't have those, and hearers don't have those, and so on. And so included among those, I did go through a few of them when we had the class on the 70 topics last year. One group is called the 10 strengths of a Buddha, or the 10 powers of a Buddha. So those are 10 qualities that only a Buddha has and no one else has. So that's the 173 aspects. And the next slide just goes through the list of the 37 harmonies that we've focused on in this course, in these different groups. So the 4 close placements of mindfulness, which another translation is the 4 establishments of mindfulness, and then 4 correct abandonings, also known as 4 supreme strivings, 4 legs of magical emanation, also known as 4 bases of spiritual power, 5 powers, 5 strengths, 7 branches of enlightenment, also known as awakening factors, and then 8 branches of Arya's paths. This is the Arya's eightfold path. So even if we can't really practice all of these right now, at least we've learned about them. Some imprints have been planted on our mind, and let's hope we'll be able to meet them again in future lives and be able to practice them. And then I thought to also go through one other thing, the next slide. The 10 grounds of a bodhisattva, I don't think we went through those. They are explained in the text, the Ornament. But yeah, I don't think we went through them. So I just thought it might be nice to take a little bit of a look at the 10 grounds. So the word ground, or bhumi in Sanskrit, this is actually a realization. It's a state of mind. It's a realization in the mind, and the 10 grounds are in the minds of Arya bodhisattvas. So they're higher level of practice. So first, before even becoming a bodhisattva, one needs to learn about the path, develop bodhicitta, and also develop an understanding of emptiness. When they get to the point where their bodhicitta arises in a uncontrived or spontaneous way, it just arises naturally, effortlessly, without having to make any effort. At that point, the person becomes a bodhisattva. That's the criteria of being a bodhisattva. And at that point, they enter the first of the 5 paths, which is the path of accumulation. And it's so called because they need to accumulate a lot of merit, positive energy, positive potential. They also need to continue cultivating their qualities of bodhicitta, the 6 perfections, especially perfection of wisdom. And when they reach the point where they have concentration, really good concentration, in fact, calm abiding, and a pretty good realization of emptiness, and they're able to combine those two and have a union of calm abiding and special insight into emptiness, that's the point where they enter the second of the 5 paths, the path of preparation. And they still have, after that, they still have to continue deepening, expanding their understanding of emptiness, their realization of emptiness, because it's not yet a direct realization. It's still a conceptual realization of emptiness. So they continue working on that while they're on the path of preparation. And that at a certain point, their realization of emptiness becomes a direct realization, no longer conceptual, but non-conceptual, direct realization of emptiness. And that is the point at which they become an Arya, and they attain the third of the 5 paths, the path of seeing. Simultaneous with attaining the path of seeing, they attain the first ground. So the first of these 10 grounds, which is called very joyous, is simultaneous with the attainment of the path of seeing. And the reason that it's called very joyous is because bodhisattvas at this point are very happy. Because they've just attained this direct realization of emptiness, and that's bringing them closer to enlightenment and being able to be more beneficial to sentient beings. So that gives them a lot of joy, because that's what they really want to do, is help sentient beings. And so they realize they are getting more and more better able to help sentient beings. And then on each of the 10 grounds, a bodhisattva attains what's called a surpassing practice of one of the perfections. There's 10 perfections. Usually we only hear about 6 perfections, but there's actually 10 altogether. The last 4 are usually or sometimes subsumed into the 6th perfection, the perfection of wisdom. Okay, so on this first ground, very joyous, the bodhisattva attains a surpassing practice of the perfection of generosity, which means that their generosity, their ability to give, becomes much better, much greater than previously when they were on the lower paths. And so bodhisattva is just so happy to give. There's different kinds of giving material things, giving dharma, giving protection from fear. So they're just full of energy to practice giving, even willing to give their own body or parts of their body. So they don't hold on to anything for themselves. And then the second ground is called stainless. And the reason it's called that, so this is like, so as a bodhisattva goes through these grounds, they are continuing to meditate on emptiness, their direct realization of emptiness. They're also continuing to accumulate merit, positive potential. And the way they pass from one ground to the next is when their realization of emptiness becomes strong enough to be able to eliminate a certain level of obscurations, because that's what they're doing. To get closer to enlightenment, they have to overcome obscurations in the mind, obscurations that are preventing their mind from becoming enlightened. And these obscurations don't just disappear all at once, but they are eliminated in layers, like peeling away the layers of an onion, finally getting to the core. And so when their realization of emptiness reaches the level where it's able to eliminate or peel away another layer of obscurations, that's when they progress from one ground to the next. So the second ground is called stainless because here a bodhisattva doesn't have the slightest stain of corrupted ethics, even when they're asleep. So when they're awake, they don't do anything unethical, and even in their dreams, they don't do anything unethical. So here the bodhisattva attains a surpassing practice of the perfection of ethics. So ethics is basically the intention to give up any kind of harmful actions, harmful behavior of body, speech, and mind, and to do only what is virtuous, what is beneficial. And then the third ground is called luminous. And we just had a little look at this because of their wisdom. Their wisdom has reached a point where it's very powerful, and they have this experience of a sort of copper-colored light. I'm not sure exactly what that means. You know, if they see it everywhere they look, or they just see it when they're meditating, I'm not sure. And yeah. And here they attain a surpassing practice of the perfection of patience. So patience, there's different kinds of patience. One is being able to not get angry no matter what anybody does. So it's said that even if someone is attacking a bodhisattva and doing horrible things to them, even torturing them, killing them, they don't get angry. They're able to have compassion and love, and a lot of that comes from wisdom. Understanding emptiness gives them the ability to bear such difficulties. So their practice of patience becomes particularly strong on this ground. And then the fourth ground is called radiant. So we just looked at a verse about that. And it's called that because on this fourth ground, there's this special light of exalted wisdom. The wisdom is said to be like a fire that can eliminate obscurations, preventing enlightenment. And on this ground, the bodhisattva attains a surpassing practice of joyous effort, the fourth perfection. So joyous effort is, in general, it's taking delight in virtue, being happy to do what is virtuous. So on this ground, of course, all along, a bodhisattva has joyous effort. But at this point, the fourth ground, their practice of joyous effort becomes particularly powerful. Fifth ground is called difficult to overcome. The reason for that is because it said a bodhisattva on this ground can subdue particularly difficult sentient beings who they would not have been able to subdue previously. Yeah, and on this ground, a bodhisattva attains a surpassing practice of concentration. So concentration is single-pointedness of mind, being able to keep the mind single-pointedly on something virtuous. So their practice of concentration becomes particularly powerful here. And the sixth ground is called approaching or manifest. Those are just different terms for the same thing. And the reason for that term is because on the sixth ground, the bodhisattva is contemplating the 12 links of dependent arising. This is the Buddha's explanation of what keeps us in samsara, these 12 different factors that are part of our mind, part of our being, causing us to continue taking rebirth in samsara again and again. And so here a bodhisattva attains particularly powerful wisdom, understanding these 12 links. And there's two ways of looking at the 12 links. One is the forward way, starting with number 1, ignorance, and then number 2, compositional factors and so on. That's the usual way. There's also a reverse way of talking about the 12 links, how you eliminate them, starting at the end. If you eliminate this, then you eliminate that, and so on. And so by contemplating the forward order of the 12 links, one understands how you approach cyclic existence, and by contemplating the reverse order, you understand how you approach nirvana, liberation. So that's why it's called approaching. And here the bodhisattva attains a surpassing practice of the perfection of wisdom. And there's actually two terms for wisdom. So this one here is, Tibetan term is sherab. Yeah, that's another term we'll meet later. And then the seventh ground is called gone far, because at this point the bodhisattva has been practicing for a really long time, and at this point they reach the end of having to apply coarse exertion. So prior to this, they had to put in a kind of coarse level of exertion or energy to practice. And they're getting to the point where they won't have to do that anymore. That's on the eighth ground, but they're kind of getting to the end of the time in which they have to apply coarse exertion to their in their practice. And so in that sense, the bodhisattva has gone far. And here they attain the surpassing practice of the perfection of skillful means. So skillful means, there's different ways of explaining skillful means. One is knowing how to teach and help sentient beings in different ways according to their level, because not everybody's the same, and what is helpful for one person may not be helpful for another person, and vice versa. So this is one quality that bodhisattvas develop, and of course Buddhas have as well, being able to help sentient beings according to their individual needs, dispositions, and so on. Okay, then number 8, the 8th ground is called immovable. The reason it's called this is because here a bodhisattva no longer needs to apply coarse exertion. They're no longer moved by coarse exertion, and they only need to apply a subtle level of exertion. They don't have to, I don't know what that means, but I guess it means you don't have to push yourself very hard to practice. Just need a little bit of subtle exertion to practice. And then the perfection here that the bodhisattva attains a surpassing practice of is sometimes called prayer or resolve. It's munlam in Tibetan. And it basically means making strong resolutions to work for sentient beings. For example, the king of prayers, this is a practice that we often do. It's a very beautiful, very long and beautiful prayer, which came from the Bodhisattva Samandabhadra, one of the 8 great bodhisattvas, disciples of the Buddha. And he's making all these, it's not prayer in the sense of, please help me do this, but rather prayer in the sense of, this is what I'm going to do, So that's why the word resolve might be more appropriate. I'm going to do this. I'm going to help sentient beings in this way. I'm going to attain enlightenment and da-da-da-da-da. So it's making all these resolves or resolutions about their practice and helping sentient beings and so on. Then 9 is called good intelligence, because here the bodhisattva has the 4 individual correct knowledges. These are actually 4 qualities that a Buddha has, but a bodhisattva is attaining them as well on this level. And the perfection here that the bodhisattva is able to attain a surpassing practice of is called power. And the perfection of power, top in Tibetan, is the strength to not be overcome by afflictions and other obscurations. So you have the power over afflictions and obscurations rather than the other way around. The 10th ground, this is the last stage before Buddhahood. It's called Cloud of Dharma. Just as rain falling from clouds causes crops to grow, likewise from the cloud-like excellent qualities of a bodhisattva, the rain of Dharma falls and helps sentient beings to develop good qualities and realizations. And here the bodhisattva attains the surpassing practice of the 10th perfection, which is called exalted wisdom, yeshe, like in Lama Yeshe. And this is explained as the wisdom that knows all phenomena, all conventional truths. So one difference between the wisdom which is the 6th perfection and the wisdom which is the 10th perfection is that the 6th perfection is mainly the wisdom understanding the emptiness, ultimate truth, emptiness of inherent existence, whereas this exalted wisdom, number 10, is explained as the wisdom that knows all phenomena, both conventional truths and ultimate truths. Okay, so that's just a little brief explanation of the 10 grounds and also the 10 perfections. And as I mentioned, usually the last 4 perfections are included under the 6th perfection of wisdom. So that's why they're not always explained individually. Okay, I've just got one last slide. This is the first verse of the text, the Ornament for Clear Realization, and I thought it would be nice to have it here for auspiciousness. The Dalai Lama, when he teaches in India. I don't know if he does this in the West, but when he teaches in India at the beginning, he recites, there's lots of prayers that are done, and he recites this verse, and he also recites the first verse of Nagarjuna's fundamental wisdom. So this verse, it's the very start of the text, the Ornament for Clear Realization, and it mentions these 3 exalted knowers. That which through the knower of all leads hearers seeking pacification to peace. So knower of all here refers to the knower of bases, and that is, a practice that hearers need to cultivate to attain nirvana, peace. But bodhisattvas and Buddhas also need to cultivate that kind of knowing as well. Then it says, that which through the knower of paths causes those benefiting migrators to accomplish the aims of the world. So knower of paths is the second of the 3 exalted knowers, and that's mainly what bodhisattvas need to develop. They need to know all the different paths that lead to different goals, liberation, enlightenment, so that they can help sentient beings attain those goals. And then it says, and through the perfect possession of which the subduers teach these varieties, having all aspects. So that refers to the exalted knower of all aspects, the 3rd of the 3 exalted knowers, and it's the Buddha's mind, omniscient mind, enlightened mind. By having that state of mind, the Buddhas are able to help all sentient beings and guide all sentient beings out of samsara, out of suffering, and to liberation and enlightenment. And then the last line says, to the mothers of the Buddhas, as well as of the hosts, of hearers and bodhisattvas, I pay homage. So here, the term mother refers to these three exalted knowers. The reason that they are called mothers is because they give birth to the hearers, the bodhisattvas, and the Buddhas. Yeah, so just as mothers give birth to their children, these three exalted knowers, these three amazing states of mind, give birth to Aryas. Here, Aryas aspiring for nirvana, Bodhisattva Aryas aspiring for enlightenment, and Buddha Aryas who are already there, already enlightened. So they are all born from these three exalted knowers. So, yeah, so it said that some people, just by encountering this verse, hearing it or reading it, will be inspired, completely inspired to want to learn about these three exalted knowers. And so they will want to practice the text, study the text, and follow it, and so on. Okay, so yeah. So we have a little bit of time left, and I asked Effie to send you a message that, yeah, if you have anything you would like to share, I would really like to hear from you, because I've been doing all the talking most of the time. And yeah, it would be nice to hear from some of you. If you'd like to share, yeah, even just one or two things you learned from following this course, or that you found beneficial from following this course.
We need somebody brave to speak up. Put your hand up or message me. There you go, Linda.
I'll start. Thank you. I was thinking about what I appreciated the most. It's a lot of material, and it's going to take me a while to organize it somehow. I hope I can organize it. It's helpful to have the slides. What I've found most helpful are the meditations that focus on various parts of the course that sort of helps me slow down and picture it differently. So I really appreciate those.
It helps you slow down and what?
And appreciate, kind of get a different perspective of the topic rather than just words. So if that makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Louise?
Yeah, I don't see where the hand is there. I've also found the close placefulness, the close placements of mindfulness very helpful. I was looking for more hands-on, being able to catch myself in daily life, and learned quite a bit, especially with that part of the course. But sometimes just a phrase, just a turn of a phrase, something you said makes um, has made me understand something a little bit deeper than I've understood before. So that I greatly appreciate, such as vigilance being also not redefined as introspective awareness. Little things, but yeah, it's been very helpful. Thank you.
Okay.
This is Curdy. May I share something?
Yeah.
Yeah. So when I first learned the term, the ornament of clear realization was from Kajupa. It seems like the test for them is as important as the lamb for Kalupa. But I had no idea what the ornament was about until now. Thank you for that. And also I found it was the first time I received the fourth placement of mindfulness, as well as receiving the teaching for the 10 ground of bodhisattva. So thank you very much, Venerable Sangye Khadro.
Thank you.
Oh, John has his hand up.
Oh yes, thank you. I enjoyed learning about the 10 grounds of the Bodhisattva. Yeah, it's quite a bit of information. So I just want to say thank you. I enjoyed the class.
And Min?
Yes, I really enjoy the class. I think I like to just meditate, maybe just listen to this list of qualities. So, yeah, sometimes it seems very healing to listen to this list of qualities. Like I think even in the Pali Canon, they say that when the Buddha was sick, somehow maybe he manifests physical sickness. He asked his attendant Ananda to enumerate the 7 factors of awakening, and he magically he recovered from his sicknesses. So that's why I feel that I always like to listen to this list. And now that I also have a bit more understanding into what it means too.
Can I share a little bit? Hi, it's Jessica.
Hi, yeah.
So about 2 years ago, I started studying this book. It's The Inner Science of Buddhist Practice by Artemis Ingle, and it's Vasubandhu's summary at Heaps. And I read it and I didn't understand it. And I read it again and I didn't understand. And I got stopped at the closely placed recollections of mindfulness. And I just put it away. And then a few months ago, I found your class. I kind of stumbled upon it. And I went, oh, I'm going to study this too. But it was really great for me to have you drop right into that. And I went, oh, this is really great. This is the timing. I wasn't ready before the multiple times. And now to hear you talk about things, I just have different frames of reference, or I've been listening to it enough. Getting to the aggregates when you were talking about those, and really trying to understand the differences between the form and the feelings and the discriminations, the mental factors and the consciousness. I'm always trying to pull these pieces apart and understand them. I really appreciated the timing of this class and the content and how it aligned. And it's a lot of information still. I wonder how many lifetimes I have to keep listening and practicing and trying to make sense and no sense of it all at the same time. I just wanted to also say thank you.
Okay. Yeah, I haven't read that book, but it sounds like it would be kind of an advanced level of book. So, yeah. So I wouldn't recommend that as a sort of starting point for Buddhism. I don't know if that was your starting point, but yeah. I hope to read it one of these days. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Thank you very much. I just think I just want to say your teaching style is so great. You make these really complicated texts so much easier to understand. And I really enjoyed that thing. I think you guys sent it out in March with the slides, working with the 5 hindrances. It's like a couple 100-page thing, and I'm still working through it, but super helpful. So, and I really like the way you've um, taken the Hinayana, and blended it in. Usually in our tradition, you don't get that, and it really is super helpful. So it makes me realize how much we have to learn. Oh my gosh. So thank you.
Yeah, that's one thing I like about this series of books, the Library of Wisdom and Compassion that Venerable Chodron is doing with the Dalai Lama, because he asked her to include material from the Pali tradition, the Chinese tradition, and I find that so wonderful, so refreshing, rather than, oh, we can only stay in our tradition and we shouldn't look at these other traditions. It's so wonderful that there's material from other sources that can complement and inspire. So yeah, that's
Plus, one last thing, I just want to thank you. I've always heard everybody talk about the 10 perfections, and I'm all, what are the other 4? I finally learned. Thank you so much.
Yeah, there's more in, I think it's a volume 6 of that series, the Library of Wisdom and Compassion. It's called Courageous Compassion, and it goes into all the 10 perfections. Yeah, so that's a resource. How about you, Effie?
Well, I really have been exposed to a lot of new material in this class, and it's been very interesting and very inspiring. I'm looking forward to taking time to go. I find that even when I'm not hosting a class, even when I'm just taking a class, I find that the first time through, I don't really get it. But if I go back and, like somebody else was saying, look at the slides, listen again, I hope to delve more deeply into the text and really absorb it more with time. Thank you so much, though. It's been really, really interesting.
Yeah, well, I just feel very fortunate that I had the opportunity to study this text, the Ornament, and we spent a year and a half, 5 days a week, which is actually short compared to what they do in the monasteries. They spend 6 or 7 years just studying this one text. But it's rich. It's so full of amazing material. And so I like to be able to share a little bit of it with other people and try to make it accessible. But there's so much more there. It's a wonderful text.
I have a question from the chat about our next class, but I just wanted to make sure that everybody who wanted to say something about this class has had a chance. So speak now or we're moving on.
Yeah.
Everybody that wanted to. So I did have a question, and I'm happy to talk about it, or if you'd like to talk about it. We do have a tentative plan in place to continue with the next basic program class in the fall, starting in September on Wednesday evenings. Do you want to speak a little bit about it, Venerable, or would you prefer that I do?
Well, I can talk about it. Effie asked if I would teach Shantideva's Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life. And I said, I would be very happy to teach that. It's such a beautiful, amazing, wonderful text. The Dalai Lama loves it, and many lamas love it. Lama Yeshe loved it. It's long. I don't know how long it will take, but we thought to do it in 2 parts because September to December will be first part, and then we do a retreat here in the winter. So I would like to take time off and do some retreat, and then we'd start again in the spring. And I'll try to get some idea of how long it will take, but it's better not to rush it because it's very, very rich, very precious. So even if we have to do it in 3 parts, I think it would be worthwhile. But so Effie, there won't be another course after this, like before summer? Somebody else teaching, I mean.
Sorry, yeah, we have other classes, but we won't have another basic program class. We have discovering Buddhism classes going on through the summer, but we're going to wait and do the next basic program in September with you.
Okay.
And we'll have like one-offs, and we have a newsletter. If anybody isn't on our list to get the email newsletter that we send out with different things, they should let me know that, and I'll add them on.
And I was thinking too that because 2 days from now, 13th of April, is the 1-year anniversary of Lama Zopa Rinpoche's passing away, and it's said that a good way to observe these anniversaries of one's teachers passing away is to make offerings. And there's different ways you can make offerings. You can make, food offerings and so on. But also there's the offering of practice to one's teacher, which means doing what your teacher advises you to do. And this is what we've done during this course, because Lama Zopa Rinpoche said he wanted students to learn about the 37 harmonies. So we spent the last 3 months learning about the 37 harmonies. So this is something, that would please Rinpoche very much. And of course, it's good for us as well. But I thought, we can make this an offering, our learning of these 37 harmonies. We can offer this to Rinpoche and request him to return quickly, be with us again in the world, and continue his amazing bodhisattva activities. So yeah, we'll be dedicating the merit with the prayers, and one of those prayers is praying for Lama Zopa Rinpoche to return. So we can think of all the merit we accumulated during these 3 months, making the effort to learn about these teachings and doing a little bit of meditation on them. So we've created a lot of merit, a lot of good energy. So we can think of all of that, rejoice in it, and then dedicate it to awakening for the benefit of all beings and the swift return of Rinpoche and the long life of His Holiness and all the other teachers who are still with us.
We will also be having programs at the center. We'll have an in-person program that people can come to in person with offerings if they want to, from 2 o'clock to 4 on Saturday. And then we'll also be chanting the names of Noble Manjushri together from 8:30 p.m. till 9 p.m. Via Zoom online Friday evening, because Friday evening is actually the 1-year anniversary of the 13th in Nepal.
Mm-hmm.
So should we go ahead and dedicate?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. May the world be happy, the years good, and grains increase, the Dharma flourish, every happiness and bliss arise, and every wish in the mind be fulfilled. Due to the merits of these virtuous actions, may I quickly attain the state of a Guru Buddha and lead all living beings without exception into that enlightened state. May the supreme jewel bodhicitta that has not arisen arise and grow, and may that which has arisen not diminish but increase more and more. Long life prayer of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, the wish-granting, wish-fulfilling jewel, source of every single benefit and happiness in this world. To the incomparably kind Tenzin Gyatso, I beseech, may all your holy wishes be spontaneously fulfilled. His Holiness the Dalai Lama's prayer for the swift return of Lama Zopa Rinpoche, peerless teacher and assembly of the children of the victorious ones, Shravakas, Prataka Buddhas, victorious Losang father and sons, together with the lineage masters, all the objects of refuge of the infinite lands, please bestow the virtue and goodness of accomplishing this prayer here and now, holding and spreading the Munis' precious and complete teachings through explanation and practice. You wore the armor of patience that is never discouraged. Incomparable, venerable Guru, to you I make request, while striving single-pointedly for the sake of the victorious one's teachings, the sole gateway through which all benefit and happiness emerge, and for all mother living beings, you suddenly departed to peace. What a great loss. Nevertheless, through the undeceiving truth of the blessings of the ocean of the three jewels and the great waves of bodhicitta of the children of the victorious ones, may the smile of a reincarnation swiftly beam in glory for fortunate disciples. And again, thank you very much, everyone, for being here, especially Venerable Sangye Khadro. Thank you so much for teaching us. Really appreciate it. Thank you. Good night, everyone.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
look out for a final email from me.